Walksnail. Let me tell you how a $35 VTX has messed with my head. I'm talking about the Caddx Ascent system, specifically the little Ascent VTX. On paper, it sounds like the bargain of the decade, until you realise it comes with a bit of a trap. Now, I know that you've seen the price and that your brain's just gone, nah, that can't be right. And that was me scrolling and seeing $35 for a VTX and camera combo, 1080p, 60 and around 35 milliseconds latency. Apparently up to 3 kilometers range as well. The whole thing weighs just 6 grams. $35 to convert this drone from analog to digital. I've paid more than that for a set of props and a coffee. So of course, curiosity won out and I got one and I stuck it in this build. And I was thinking to myself, if this thing is even half decent, analog is in serious trouble. And I even made some shorts and reels pretty much saying what my initial impressions were with regards to analog, and it did trigger one or two people. My first impression was that it's far better than it's got any right to be at this price point. It was easy to wire up. It's just the same as an 04 or Walksnail, straight into Betaflight. It looks better than anything it has right out of the door for $35. Sure, it isn't Avata Pro Cinematic and it's not DJI Crisp, but when you compare it to analog, it's really good. You get a 147 degree wide angle lens field of view and a 16.9 aspect ratio. You've got 1080p when you want clarity or 720p when you're chasing range. Power is from 25 to 100 milliwatt, which sounds small, but people have pushed these things apparently out over 3 kilometers on range tests. Latency sits around the advertised 35 millisecond mark. It's not race winning, but it's fine for freestyle and park cruising and little explorers like this. So at this point, I'm thinking it's pretty impressive. So who really needs to spend $150 to $200 on an 04 if something like this really is half as good as what it is for the smaller quads? And then I hit a catch. There's always a gotcha with these things, isn't there? And the gotcha is the tiny island called an ecosystem. And this is the part that, unless you're well versed and understand these things, you might fall foul of. See, Walksnail Avatar works. It works with the goggles X and, of course, the goggles L. Now, you'd be forgiven if you mistaked these for goggles L, because they do look very, very similar to the goggles L. And that's where we fall into a little bit of a trap, because the problem is, if you buy a set of these and you've seen the goggles L and you can see that, well, these work with the new Ascent system, they look like the goggles L, so I'm going to guess I can use these on the Avatar system because they look just the same as the goggles L, don't they? And that's the first problem. That's where we run into a real big hitch and glitch, because these two systems, despite being from the same manufacturer, don't talk to each other. It's a big ecosystem that you can't control. The Avata ecosystem has got the Moonlight, it's got the Avata Pro, it's got the Avata 1S, it's got the goggles L. Ascent is just Ascent, and there is no crossover between them. Now, some people are saying, oh, well, there might be a patch. I don't think the hardware is going to work together. And that's the problem, because once you're in this ecosystem and you bought this pair of goggles, you're not necessarily going to want another pair. The FAQ on Caddx's website literally spells it out. The Ascent Light Kit is part of the Ascent digital system and is not compatible with the Avatar system. Currently, the Ascent Light Kit can only be used with Ascent goggles. Now, it says the word currently, but we all know Caddx does Caddx things. So it says currently, which does suggest that maybe in the future there might be a patch or there might be something to, but there's no way of putting an external module onto these. And that becomes really, really problematic, because once you've got these goggles, it's not like the goggles X where you can put a HD0 VRX on them. These goggles will take analog, HD0 and Caddx Walksnail because they've got a HDMI in. These don't have a HDMI in, which means if Caddx don't patch it, they'll never work with anything else. And here's the problem. Caddx have a history of problems like this. We was originally promised by Caddx to get MSP working on the Caddx Vista system, which was a DJI system version 1 digital, basically. Caddx said, yep, we've got it all sorted. We're going to release it next month or whenever they said. And then that never happened and it went quiet for about 6 months. And then the next thing, Caddx released the Caddx Walksnail, which we all know is basically a bit of an improvement from version 1 of DJI Digital. I asked Caddx numerous times, what happened to the MSP on the Vista that you said you had working and that you was promising to deliver to pilots? And I never got an answer. Now, some Caddx apologists will say to you, but it's okay because we've got the Walksnail, it's not a problem. But behind me on that wall there, you'll see that there's loads, there's a few anyway. Most of them are in the drawer now, but there's a few quads on there with a Vista. Now, we have something called WTF OS, and that's what a lot of the apologists will also direct you to and say, well, just use WTF OS. That gives you exactly what you want, and it does, but that's a hack, and that's a community hack, and that's done by some incredible and amazing people, but not Caddx. Like they said they had working, like they promised they would get out to us. Why am I telling you about the Caddx Vista or the DJI version 1 system? It sounds like sour grapes. Well, it's not an isolated incident with Caddx, because when the Avata system or the Walksnail system was first launched, they said, don't worry, we're going to bring out an expansion board for version 2. And that's going to fly, I can't remember what they said, but something like 50 or 60% further with 50 or 60% better penetration. That also never happened. So, the Ascent system is brilliant for small class drones, for whoops and for micros. Absolutely brilliant. There's no question about it. But if you're going to buy into the system, you have to know that when you're buying into that system, what you are actually buying is that system, and not a promise from Caddx that maybe in 6 months' time, you'll get a different system attached to it as well. Because if you buy it on that promise, you probably will become very disappointed later on. Now, if you buy the system, I have bought Ascent, and Ascent is what I have, and it will never be anything other than Ascent, and you're happy with that, brilliant. It's no problems. It's just be very, very careful of what you believe you are being promised by Caddx. And I know this sounds like I'm running Caddx up and I'm absolutely trash. What I'm not. What I'm doing is I'm explaining to you history and what's happened in the past. History may well repeat itself. History may not repeat itself. It may be that Caddx turn around and provide Walksnail access to it. They may provide Walksnail version 2 for this and all the other things that they promised for it. And that'd be brilliant, because they would repay the faith that a lot of customers have given them. But until it happens, you've got to take it with a pinch of salt. It does get a little bit more interesting if we drill down and look at the Caddx Protos kit. The Protos is basically Caddx saying to us, here's an entire FPV starter pack cheaper than some people's goggles. So for around $359, which is cheaper than a pair of these in most places nowadays, you're going to get yourself a drone. You're going to get yourself the Ascent system. You're going to get yourself a set of these goggles. And you're going to get yourself a radio, a battery, a charger, everything you need to go and get into the sky for $359. And I think we all can agree that the video is better than analog, but it's nowhere near Walksnail, and it's not a patch on DJI at all. The latency is good enough for what it is, but it's aimed at flying really close to yourself in small spots, parks, and places like that. The vibe of it is that it's designed to be cheap, cheerful, and good enough to hook you in. And if you look at it from that angle, then the Ascent system makes a lot of sense. For a brand new pilot who owns nothing, a Protoss kit is a super low barrier to entry by Caddx. No messing around with mixing bands or working out which goggles talk to which VTX or this or that. You literally pull it all out of the box, you turn it on, and you fly. And it's as simple as that. And that has to be a good thing when it comes to beginners. But we go back to the cheap printer, expensive ink problem. You know how you can buy like a printer for 40 bucks, but then it costs 35 bucks to replace the ink every time you've used it? The Ascent feels a little bit like that. The VTX is insanely cheap at $35. For digital FPV, that's pretty wild. To use it, you could only use the Ascent system. Nothing else in the Walksnail or the Avata system will talk to it. The goggles sit in their own little niche. They don't talk to your Avata VTXs, and your Ascent VTXs don't work with your Avata goggles. So the first hit, sure, is cheap, but when you move on from there, and if you decide later on down the line, I want to try Avata or I want to upgrade to DJI or HD0, you're completely out of luck. You've got to buy a whole new set of goggles. Now, DJI, we've never had a VRX for DJI, so that's separate, I guess. But with these, you can fly HD0, you can fly Walksnail, you can fly analog. Whereas with the Ascent, you're going to be starting from scratch. You're going to have to buy a new pair of goggles. And it may well be a pair of these. It may well be something else. So is it good or is it bad? And here's where I land with the Ascent system. Let me know in the comments down below if you agree with me. What's genuinely good is it's a stupidly cheap way into digital FPV. It's lightweight, amazing for micros, tiny whoops, and park flyers. It's better than analog from a clarity and stability point of view, especially for new pilots. The latency is okay, the range is okay for the price. And obviously it plays nicely with Betaflight, iNav, etc. because you've got the canvas OSD mode. It doesn't feel like you're flying a toy, it feels a little bit more professional than that. But what really does hold it back is that locked-in ecosystem and the Caddx's promises in the past to do this and do that and do the other and not deliver upon them. No onboard DVR footage means that you're relying on your link to record anything. So if your link isn't there, you've got no recording. And image quality it's good for against analog, but it's not a patch on other digital systems. The problem as well is it's an unclear future. Will the ecosystem be expanded, or will Caddx sideline it in 6 months' time after they've sold a bunch of beginner kits? So if you're already invested in Walksnail, DJI and HD0, Ascent's probably not for you. But if you're curious and you want to experiment, especially at this time of the year for Christmas, then the Protoss kit or the Ascent system might just be the one for you. If you want something that looks nicer than analog and doesn't break the bank, and you're on a tight budget, the Ascent starts to make a little bit more sense. As long as you go into it knowing the chance is you can't really upgrade anything. Now there is rumours again that Caddx will release a more powerful VTX later on. Take it as it is today that this is what we've got and that this is what we're getting, and if anything else gets better in the future, then brilliant. So that is my experience with the Ascent system. Stupidly cheap, relatively decent, but annoyingly locked in. If you were starting from scratch today with no goggles, no quad, nothing, would you be tempted to buy something like the Protoss kit? Or would you rather save a little bit longer and jump straight in to something a bit better like DJI, HD0 or a good analog setup? Drop your thoughts in the comments down below, especially if you've already flown Ascent. Range test, fail-safes, quirks of it. I'm genuinely curious to know how it's gone for you. Smart budget gateway or just another fragmented system that we don't really need. Either way, $35 digital FPV is here. The question is, it's two questions. Is it a bargain or is it a trap? And it's here, but is it here to stay? Thanks so much for watching. You've all been legends as always. And thank you so much for supporting the channel. I really, genuinely appreciate it. Until next time, peace. YouTube and I have had a chat, and we believe that this is the video that you'll like the most. So watch it and let me know if they're right.